Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Welcome, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Welcome to Everything Co-op. I am in D.C. It's a sunny day, a beautiful day this morning, and Miss Karen Washington is our guest today. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Mr. Oakes. Glad to be here.
And where are you this morning?
I'm in sunny Georgia in Gwinnett County.
Good. Thank you. And you're on the day, we're continuing to talk about women farmers, and particularly this year's the UN is celebrating the International Year of the Woman Farmer 2026. What does this mean to you to have women farmers recognized globally in this way?
Well, I think I'm surprised that there's a special month for women farming when we've been doing this since the ancient days. And so, again, to be recognized, because if you look at agriculture globally, it's women who have been at the forefront for decades and decades. And so for us to continue to have recognition is very, very important so people understand where their food comes from.
Great. So when you think about women in agriculture, whose shoulders are you standing on?
You know, when I think of women in agriculture, I always think about my ancestors. You know, I think about the people who we don't know, but who traveled a long way to an unknown place so that I can stand in their greatness. And so I want to give a recognition to those ancestors who I don't know but have allowed me to do what I'm doing today.
I like the way you say that. I like it. And you grew up in New York City. So how did that journey lead you from the city into farming and food justice work?
Yeah, so I grew up in New York City in a project, the Jacob Riis Housing Projects, 10th Street and Avenue D. Never thought about farming. I grew up with the notion that farming was slave work, dirty work. And so never even thought about farming. I had a great childhood, a lot of fun, great parents, great community, which is really, really important. And so thinking about farming was not my forte. It was more focused on education. I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to somehow cure cancer at a young age. And so that's what I was thinking about, not about food.
Okay, so how did you get into this work?
Well, I got into it as an adult. I got into it when, at the age, I think 33, I moved to the Bronx and had a backyard and decided that I didn't want to cement it. I didn't want to put a lawn on it. I wanted to grow food. And so 3 things that I decided I wanted to grow were tomatoes, eggplant, and collard greens. And it was a tomato that changed my world.
How did the tomato change your world?
Well, my mother loved tomatoes, and I hated them because I couldn't understand a pink, round, tasting like cardboard was so satisfying for her. So when I grew my first tomato, believe it or not, I was surprised that it grew on a vine. That's number one. I was surprised that it was red in color. And when I bit into it, I had this experience of sunshine bursting in my mouth.
Wow.
And I knew that, okay, this is the way to go. This is the way to go. I got to start growing my own food.
Okay. That bursting of sunlight in your mouth, I've experienced that, particularly when you You grow it yourself. Yeah. And it's nourishing and nutritional. Okay. Got it. And I can see how that could change your world. Yeah. Grow your own
Yeah,
food.
it changed my world, and it got me. The next phase was in community garden and empty lots, and so I continued to grow into that part of my journey, working in community gardens. Because at one time New York City had over 15,000 vacant lots, mostly in low-income neighborhoods and neighborhoods of color. And so my journey continued from my backyard into empty lots and community gardens.
So if you go and look at history and those ancestors you talk about, women have always been central to feeding the families and communities, yet often invisible. Why is that?
I think it's intentional. Because I was, being a woman, I think a lot of people are just afraid of our power, the power that we hold to make change, the power that we hold, understand our relationship to nature, to land, and to the elements. And when you have that strong sense of power, people are afraid of that, and so they wanted to disengage that narrative and spin it around so that they feel that they have control. But a lot of it is fear of our power, and so they spin it around to sort of try to lessen it so that they in turn can have control. But nah, it ain't working.
So you said women end up with the power and people. I think, and at least what I hear, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong or whatever, is that men don't like women having all that power. And so men want to have it to be invisible that women have the power.
Yeah, definitely, and I would say explicitly white men. If you want to be honest about it, to have spin the narrative around agriculture, around being black, about being a people of color, the narrative has always been spinned around that, and a lot of it is, I've come to believe, and I know in my heart, is the fear of the power of black women in general, and they're afraid of that, and so they spin it around to sort of benefit them. And I believe that, and I see that, and I feel that. So that's my take.
So what happens when women become, move from being just caregivers and the food system to decision makers and owners?
That's when we become more powerful. I think we're at a point in time where we're starting to see that. I think for so long, a lot of us have been brainwashed, and put into silos, put into individuality. When in fact, I think a lot of us are understanding how important it is to work in communities, to be collaborative, to think about cooperative movements. And I think that especially now at this point in time, that people are starting to understand the strength we have in numbers, the strength when we work together, the unity that we have, what we can bring forth to change the dynamics of how we're going to move forward now and in the future. And I think that's really, really important.
So in your experience, how do women approach farming and community building differently?
Well, I think now is to understand the power that we have. I think for so long we've had our heads literally in the soil, working so hard to feed our community. But I think this is a moment in time when we're starting to realize that we got this. And I think we're starting to realize that in order to move forward our power, the essence of who we are, is that we have to work in communities. And I'm starting to see that now. And I pitch it as ecosystems of people coming together from different sectors, and coming together, because it's not only about food. So food is at the center, but there's intersections around food. They have to think about the economics. You have to think about land. You have to think about education. You have to think about distribution. So certain aspect within the ecosystem that we're starting to come together to really be in our power as women.
So you said that access and equity are central to the future of urban agriculture, and that access is money, land, being able to distribute it.
Hmm.
How does that specifically impact women?
Because women are going to be at the forefront of it. I mean, if you look at the work that I have been doing, it's most of the organizations around food are run by women. Duh. So it just makes sense, again, this is movement building that for so long the narrative has been co-opted by men when in reality the work that has been done is by women. And so now it's for us to take back that narrative and make it our own.
Fantastic. So we talk about, on this show particularly, about resources flowing through communities. I have it that economics, the study of economics, was started at the home level. What happens in the household? How does money flow through the household and how much stays in it? How does food flow differently when women are in control?
Well, I think, women have always been sort of the caretakers, of any household. And so, and at the heart of it is food. Food is the foundation. And so, and I think what I've learned from being a woman and being in spaces is that we not only care about the household itself and feeding the household, but also feeding the community. And I say that growing up in a household whereby we made sure that our neighbors were being fed. My parents worked, and if we came home from school and they weren't there, it was the neighbors that got together to make sure that we were fed, and vice versa. So I think this has been a trend that has happened, in my lifetime. What sort of stopped it per se is, people again thinking about, well, let's do something quicker and better and faster. And so let's go through this fast food sort of revolution that has really separate that sort of communal aspect at one time where, families were feeding families. And now you see, because of the commercialization of food, that the remedy now is, well, if you can feed your family, you can feed your family with fast food because it's easier, especially for working families. And so, again, we're at a point in time where we have to just sort of take again that narrative back of what it is to feed in community and what that looks like and what it should be.
Okay, so we want to take that narrative back. And what does it mean for women to not just grow food, but to own the systems that produce and distribute food?
Oh, I like that. I love that question because this is where we get our power back, take our narrative back. I say this is a new food revolution whereby not only are we growing food because it's important, growing food is important, but the thing about it that you got to own the system. I remember someone told me a while a while ago that Rosa Parks got us from the back of the bus to the front of the bus, but we stayed there because we never thought about owning the bus line. And so the same sort of thinking is that, okay, so we're good at growing the food, but are we controlling the food system in terms of distribution and ownership? And so again, these are things that are in the background, the conversation that is happening amongst women.
So one way of owning it is through cooperative ownership, collectively owning the stores, the distribution systems. So
What,
would you
without a doubt.
would you describe community gardens and urban farms as form of cooperative ownership?
Oh, without a doubt, because the word community is at the center and heart of the community garden movement. It started out in New York City as guerrilla gardening. It was like people just taking over land and, just throwing seeds and just thinking about whatever can grow. But then it started turning community garden when you had people within communities that were intentional about growing food for their community, providing a safe space for the children and their seniors, to have it as an educational component. But the essence of it, the whole root of it, is the community coming and having a say on how the garden is run. And I think, yes, it is a form of cooperative growing. Definitely.
So, will you share with us, the audience, and me, a story where you saw women transform a community through growing and sharing food?
Yeah, my own experience forming the community garden, the Garden of Happiness, which at one time was started by Southern blacks. So when community gardens, sometimes the ethnicity changes. So it started with a handful of gardeners from the South, and over time it's changed from Southern blacks to Dominicans to Puerto Ricans, and now it's mostly Mexican. But at the heart of each iteration of ethnicity, of culture, the backbone were women. And it was women at the Garden of Happiness that control the essence on how that garden was maintained and operated. And as a result, we started to look at not only growing food within our community, but how about taking it a step further and doing a farmer's market, so that not only were we growing the food in the community of a block, but how about growing food and distribute it into a whole community, the whole section of the Bronx, which was the Crotona or Tremont section of the Bronx. Yes, did people disbelieve that it could happen because people were telling us that poor people won't buy food, oh, people don't, no one's going to come to the market. And that market was started in 2008, and it continues today from the essence and knowledge of women women farmers in a community garden that thought outside the raised bed, that food can not only be nourishing to a block of community, but that it could be shared amongst a whole community, a whole array of communities coming together with the intention of deserving to have good, healthy food.
So that's 18 years from 2008 to 2026.
The garden is called La Familia Verde Farmers Market on Tuesdays from July to November in the Bronx.
La Familia is Spanish?
Excuse me?
It's Spanish, La Familia Garden?
Yes, the Green family.
Okay. Do you like doing this work?
Excuse me?
Do you like doing this work?
I love doing this work. It's like, I don't think I can say like. I would say love doing this work. I think for me it's spiritual, definitely spiritual. And I think I to be honest with you, I think it was a intervention of my journey to do what I'm doing now, and I don't take it lightly.
All right. So for the audience out there, we are on Zoom, so I can see Karen's face light up when I asked her does she like this work. It lit up the same way when she talked about eating that tomato and having sunshine burst in her mouth. Okay, just light up. So yeah, I see it, the love and the spiritual part of this, doing this work. And you co-founded Black Urban Growers. What role do Black women play in that movement? First,
Well, black
what is Black Growers Garden? And then what role does women play, particularly Black women play?
So Black Urban Growers was founded and created by women. And I say that because a lot of us would go to conferences and sit in a sea of whiteness. You would count on our hand how many people look like us, and the framework and the conversation and the workshops were always white centered. And so you sit there and say, well, don't black people have something to offer? And so got this idea, met with some like-minded women, and said, you know what, let's put on a conference. Now, I went to someone, a friend of mine, at first who had done conferences before for some advice. And the advice he gave me was, Karen, it's not going to work. Black people don't want to farm. All they want to do is play sports and music. And so when someone of another shade, male, says that to you, it's like, okay, so that's how it's gonna be. Hell to the no. Let me get my black women. Come on, y'all. We sat down and mapped it out, and so from 2010 until now, and our next conference is going to be in New Orleans this year. Black women, women power, did this conference. Black farmers, an urban gardener conference that started in 2010 because people thought that we couldn't do it. And we can.
So have you talked to people in New Orleans that are doing farming, Black women particularly?
Well, we're going to go there. So we haven't been there yet. We're going to go there. But I have been in New Orleans after Katrina and walked around. And this was a while ago. I haven't been back since. So this was maybe, oh gosh, maybe 10 years ago was the last time I was in New Orleans for a farming event. And there was people who were growing food there, and they were saying, Karen, let me take you to see the reality of what is happening, not the glorified places that they want you to see, but the heart of the community. And it was devastating. It was devastating at the time because, again, the Ninth Ward was really, really hit hard. There was still economic damage that was being done. Houses that literally saw trees growing up in them. And so I am excited about going back to see the rebirth, hopefully, of what is happening in New Orleans. And so I'm excited to see this new iteration of farming movement and what it looks like in New Orleans. And I'm excited to be there in this fall.
So my suggestion, at least, Tamar Israel is a Black woman that's involved in New Orleans, and they have a farm that I visited there a couple years ago, and they are teaching young people how to farm. And I would say to you, if you wanted somebody to help sponsor or help you create, like tours of what's going on cooperatively in New Orleans, she would be a great person to work with you. She's just phenomenal. And I had other people take me to the farm. So, matter of fact, I was staying with a friend in an apartment building, and they had a meeting, and it was this group of people. It was coincidence like you couldn't believe. A group of people, 50 people, that was having a meeting about co-ops. How do you create co-ops and the different co-ops that were being created in New Orleans? So there is a healthy group of people doing co-ops in New Orleans and doing farming. And I was trying to remember where they got their land. I want to believe it was like in Detroit. Detroit had gotten maybe 10 acres from the city, from a park that they created a farm. I think they did the same thing in New Orleans. I think it was a park that they had gotten the city to 5-6 acres. So I'll try to hook you up. One of the things we like doing here is the networking of people we know, particularly in this world of farming. So if you're going to New Orleans and you want some help and maybe some people working together to do this conference, she would be excellent.
Thank you for that information.
And I'll get you her contact info, either Pat or I. Pat is the producer, and she's probably listening. And she'll want you to give us the names of the people you've talked about, women in this co-op world, as we got your name from Noemi. Okay. A couple weeks ago she was on. Well, no, she was on last week, but the week before, Jamila Medley, who is in co-ops, and she's out of the Philadelphia area. Okay. So my next question, what unique barriers do Black women farmers face when it comes to land, capital, and recognition?
Racism, sexism,
Okay.
and economic barriers.
What do those economic barriers look like?
What are the economic barriers?
Yes.
The economic barriers for all Black people
How do they show up?
is access to capital. I mean, it goes without reason. The fact that Black folks have a hard time getting capital. There is this misconception that has been handed down since slavery, is that Black people don't know how to manage money. And this is not only in the economic world; it's a nonprofit too. It seems that I don't know what it is. It's like we don't know how to manage money, and so we are a risk.
Listen,
and it has gone down.
we're going to take a break. And I really like what you've talked about with women in farming so far. And we're going to come back and talk particularly about this money and how do we sustain this going forward? What does the future look like in farming, Black women in particular? We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial. Welcome back, everybody. This is Everything Co-op. My name is Vernon Oakes, and our guest today is Karen. Washington has started several different kinds of farms. The Black Urban Growers is the one that we've just talked about. And Karen, we've been on air now. We're in our 13th year talking about co-ops, and our main host, our main financial advisor and helper and supporter has been a National Cooperative Bank. NCB mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. So, Karen, when you talked about funding and the number one barrier that women face are racism and sexism, and in funding it is that Black people don't know how to manage money, is the myth, the thing that people put out. All kinds of negative things about Black folks, and that's one. NCB main purpose is, and was created in the 80s, to provide funding for co-ops and their members, especially in communities where Black, brown, and Native folks live. Have you had the opportunity to work with them at all, Karen?
No, it's great information. So you can definitely give me that information. It's really critical, especially again. I'm glad that I'm on this show because how do we get this information so it can be deciphered into Black and brown communities that are wanting to form co-ops or that are forming co-ops but don't have the information around resources, which is really, really critical. And that's another thing I think we need to do too, besides thinking about growing food. How do we share resources? I'm talking about in terms of capital.
Mm-hmm.
How do we share resources so that we're not always with our hands out asking for money or begging for money, but if there are institutions like you just mentioned that can help, then I would like to know because I can use that information like you are doing in making sure that there are people out there that know that this exists.
So NCB and CDF, Capital Impact Partners, have something.
CPA,
NCB, National Cooperative Bank,
got that one.
and Capital Impact Partners have an innovation award. It is up to $50,000, and they give 5 a year. So that award may be something that you could apply for. Now, Capital Impact Partners is a CDFI that grew out of National Cooperative Bank. So they're also looking for ways of funding minority enterprises. And then there's John Holesclaw, who is out of North Carolina, but formed the Rochdale CDFI to create funding for minorities. And it's a CDFI, Rochdale. It was born out of NCB also. That's what they do. Then there's a group called Shared Capital. They do funding for minority enterprises, low-income folk. That's all. There's more that have been created to help Black, brown, Native folks.
Right.
Okay.
So I've started the Black Farmer Fund was started because of that. I can't go to Black Farmer Fund because of conflict of interest. But so the Black Farmer Fund was started again, Black women, me and Olivia, because there was a need. This is in the North. We started first in New York, just in New York. We started first in New York because we were looking at how the Black farmers in New York could not gain capital without giving up their firstborn. I mean, they had to go through so many hurdles, business plan, credit, all this and that, and really we're not looking at the aspect on how to make farmers and farm businesses succeed. And so again, putting out to the universe of what Black Farmer Fund intention was. Now we're aiming for $20 million. I think we're at $16 million organization that gives out gifts and loans and to Black farmers and Black organizations that are about businesses that are doing the work. And we started that in 2019, and here we are 7 years later, working to help our community. And now we're in Northeast. So we started first in New York, but now we're in Northeast. Black Farmer Fund.
Is that capital to buy land and then also for operations?
Yes. buy land. It's for buy land. It's for businesses. It's for materials, machinery, you name it. And it goes through a process. There's a application process that people apply, and you go through a process where you're going to be interviewed, and people are going to find ways. Black Farmer Fund finds ways to help you succeed.
So how does one reach out to the Black Farmers Fund if they want to donate money or make an application?
Definitely. So we have our website, blackfarmerfund.com. Go on the website, fill out an application, and then also for those that want to donate, it'll be great. We also have a donation page that people can donate to.
So that's Black, BLACK, Farmer, FARM,
Farmer, right. Black Farmer
Fund, one word.
Yes, one word.
Dot,
Black Farmer Fund.
.com?
.com.
Okay.
I'm sorry, blackfarmerfund.org. Sorry about that. blackfarmerfund.org.
And I put
one word.
Yeah, I put .coop, but it's .org. Okay.
Org.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But anyway, we're here.
So here's what I heard you say. One of the barriers to Black folk and women is getting capital. One of is getting land, and one is getting recognition. At least that's what I asked you. But in the capital, you saw that as a problem, and you women said, let's solve this by creating our own fund. And you've gotten $16 million in your fund, and your goal is 20 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not 20 billion yet, but I got it, 20 million.
I love that. How about trillion?
Hey,
well, go listen to me. We're unstoppable.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's do this. Let's do this.
Okay. So, how does bringing women together across urban and rural spaces change what's possible?
I would say because for so long, people have divided us. Oh my goodness. Again, they put us in category. So you're urban and you're rural. But yet the essence of what all of us are doing is growing food to feed our community. And so now we're trying to take back that narrative because of again, people who see strength in numbers and see strength as Black women. So the narrative is like, oh, they're just, growing food in cities. That's a hobby. It doesn't mean anything. Whereby, we're rural areas. We're the ones that are really growing the food. And it's like, no. So we're trying to dismiss that narrative of separatism and coming together as people who grow food to feed people. That's the united narrative that we are spinning. You can be growing food on your daggone windowsill. You could be growing food on your terrace. You could be growing food in your backyard. Mm-hmm. Women unite, because the essence of what we're trying to do is to grow food to feed our community. And if it is in a garden, if it's in a backyard, a front yard, a windowsill, a terrace, 6 acres, 100 acres, we are one in the essence of growing food to feed our community.
Stop the division and let's come together.
Without a doubt.
So I spent 4 days in the Bahamas. I just got back Tuesday evening, a mini vacation. And the Bahamas Cooperative League has a motto that I really like. Co-ops are people coming together to help people help themselves. And I've heard you say co-ops and these urban farms, urban, rural, doesn't make any difference. windowsills, doesn't make any difference. Are people coming together to help people help themselves in homes and in communities
To
throughout?
feed our community, to nurture our community, take care of our community.
Yes. Okay. So what lessons from Black urban growers can be applied to women-led cooperative efforts more broadly?
Each one teach one.
Yeah, you're talking about the fifth cooperative principle was training, education, and information. We teach.
Each one teach one.
Teach. Share knowledge.
Share knowledge.
Okay. So many women farmers talk about land not as property, but as something to care for. How do you see that? How do you see land?
Yeah, land for me is a very, very spiritual. I remember, when I first got introduced to land on a larger scale, I went to California for a program to learn how to grow food organically. It was my first time seeing a broad landscape, acres and acres of land. And I was fearful at first. Believe it or not, I was fearful at first, even though I was growing food in small places on community garden, to see land in such magnitude and that I was going to be taking care of that magnitude of land with others. It was scary. And so my mind said, well, Karen, you have two things. Either going to go back home, because I was in California, or you're going to, approach this. And so what I literally did was walk to the land, stuck my hands in it, and felt this sense of belonging. And I said, yeah, I got this. I got this. And ever since, it has been spiritual for me. I think where I am now in the Black Dirt region of the Hudson Valley, they call that land Black Dirt because it has so much organic matter. It's a gift. And so I'm at the farm and I sit by the land and I give it thanks. I ask permission for me to grow food in it. And so for me, it's been a very spiritual journey because it's given me and my community so much to be able to use the land, the soil, which is healing, to grow food to feed people. So that's my take, my relationship to land.
So where is this Hudson Valley?
Hudson Valley, it's in New York State. If you are familiar with New York City, it's an hour and 15 minutes north of New York City along the New York Thruway 87, exit 16.
Okay. How many acres do you have there?
So we have 6 acres, of which 3 is in production.
Why don't you produce all 6?
Well, when you think about growing food, you have to think about rotating land. So, we get into trouble when we don't allow land to rest. So there are times whereby you don't touch land so that land can rest, so that you're able to use it the next year. So again, your relationship to land and to Mother Nature, like human beings, you need time to rest. So you can't, because agriculture is extractive. It's an extractive process. You're growing and you're extracting. You're growing and extracting, and so you have to say to yourself, "Well, damn, doesn't the land need some time to rest too?"
Mm-hmm.
And so you cover crop it and you rest it so that you can use it the following year or the following years. So definitely.
You have to take care
Hope
of
I'm
the
getting
land.
that through
I got it.
to people to understand that.
So you've talked about water access and sustainability. Why are these issues especially important for women farmers?
Not only women farmers, for human beings,
Okay.
access to water. So I don't want it to be just women farmers. How about just human nature, whereby because of construction that is happening, devastating construction that is happening, of companies are taking over land, land grabbing, and the result of causing destruction of waterways so that people no longer have access to water to grow food or to drink or to bathe in. And so we need to look at the holistic aspect of water, of land, even of air, where it's becoming more commercialized. And I say to myself, how does one control, how does a human control access to water, access to air, access to land? How do you control Mother Nature? Access to seeds. That's another thing maybe we'll talk about. But anyway, water is life. And so we have to be very, very outspoken and align our values that everyone has a right, a human right, to clean, safe water. So I'm glad you brought that up because it's very, very, it's not in a box. It's a human right.
And in the U.S., we've taken it for granted because you turn on the faucet and water comes out. Flint, Michigan has had its issues with lead in the water through the pipes. And I visited St. Thomas. They have to really ration their water. And lots of places in the world, you have to ration water, or there isn't any. So, yeah, the future, to have water and air, we need policies. So, what needs to change in our policies and our ownership or our mindsets to truly support farmers, particularly women farmers?
We have to control the narrative. Like I said, listen to me. I'm on this sort of journey to, so when people, first of all, land is politics. Let's just talk about this. A lot of the things that we do is political. And the thing about it is that, again, people understand where our strength is because there are people out there that don't want us. They want to change voting regulations and stuff like that because they'll become more powerful. People of color, they are, again, people with power and privilege are afraid of what this next iteration of diverse population is going to look like. And so what we need to do is to make sure that we vote the people that correspond to our will and our needs. And it has to start locally, you know, because you get boiled up into this whole atmosphere of what has happened nationally and statewide. So let's sort of bring it down so people can understand your local politics, how you can change your local politics by getting people in certain positions that agree to what you want them to be. That's number one. Number two, holding people who are already in office accountable. When I was living in New York City, I knew every political person. Why? Because I made it my point to reach out to them, to have a conversation, to invite them to my community, to have town hall meetings, to talk. And I think we have that power and we don't use it. We complain about it, but we don't go do like the door knocking that we used to do. The door knocking, you know, and everything now is through social media. But the door knocking and going to an elected official's office and sitting down with them alone or with a group of people and telling them exactly what they are not doing or what they should be doing, having that conversation, or inviting them into your local community and sitting down and explaining to them your wants, not your needs, but your wants.
Explaining to them your wants.
Well, I tell people, if you come into my community and you want to help, don't ask me what I need, ask me what I want. If you ask me what I need, that comes from a position of deficit. Ask me what I want comes from a position of power. So, what I want is access to land, access to water, access to capital, and access for freedom to be who I want to be.
Okay. So, for women listening right now, and they may want to get involved in growing food or building community, where should they start?
You know, I always tell people who are interested, in New York City, New York, Detroit, Baltimore, Philly, these are places I've been to. Boston, they have a huge urban ag movement, huge urban ag movement. And I would tell people, just get involved, find out where the nearest community garden or urban farm is. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask if you can help. It's out there. It's out there for the taking. I tell people, if you go to a farmer's market, ask. If you go to a local farmer's market, you support that farmer's market, especially if you see farmers of color there, ask if you can come visit their farm. We have community days on our farm on the last Friday now of every month from May until October. We have community days where we invite the community, come and see, where your food comes from. Come and put your hands in the dirt, get down and dirty. And so that's why your listeners are out there. You believe it or not, there are people that, farmers that want you to come and visit to see where your food comes from. There are community gardens and urban farms that are always looking for help, for people to want to come and help or share their knowledge. One thing I found in doing this work, when we were doing our farmers market, and it was okay to get the youth. I love the youth, but during the summer, the youth want to go swimming and stuff like that. Our biggest outreach was senior centers. What? You'll be surprised how much knowledge there is in senior centers, seniors that grew up on farms and want something to do. That is such a great resource of seniors that want to farm, they want to grow food, they want to share their knowledge, and it's an untapped resource. I'm a senior now,
Yeah, I am too. So, I would have never thought to go to senior centers and see who wants to farm. Yeah, that would, yeah. You said that growing your own food gives you power and dignity. What does that mean to you today?
It gives you power and dignity because you grew it. You knew where it came from. You grew it because it's nourishing, it's healthy, and you did it with your own two hands.
Okay. You did it with your own two hands. Bugs would probably be great for the Collective Courage Grant. That's another one. Producer Pat Norton sent that to me to tell you. The Collective Courage Grant. Collective Courage is after the book Collective Courage that Dr. Jessica Gordon Nimhard wrote. And they have a grant. I mentioned Jamila Medley. She's on that committee. So, yeah, you might want to look at that one too. So, Karen, we only have one more minute. So, when history looks back, what would you hope it would say about the role women played in transforming our food system?
I hope that people understand that women have always been the backbone of agriculture, that when it comes to growing food, just remember whose shoulders you stand on. And you stand on the shoulders and the greatness of women.
Thank you, Karen, for being with us today. Thank you very much for the work you're doing. And everybody out there, we will see you next Thursday. Please live cooperatively.